Pax Natura for me has been more like a family because I was in university a couple years ago in the College of Social Work, and part of um, part of an opportunity that came up was the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's this kind of opportunity to go and represent your department in England and talk about issues on conflict resolution, peace building, environmental issues. And at the time, I was really, really focused on clinical work. So my specialty was drug and alcohol treatment. And so I was able to meet Dean Chatterjee in the process of my work over there at the University of Utah, and it turned out he was the one leading the Oxford Consortium of Human Rights, and it was mostly aimed for law students, but it was very interdisciplinary. So due to some awards I had recently received, I got to be considered to be part of the group. So I think the group consisted of like 7 people representing 7 different disciplines, and in his speech or workshop back in London, he mentioned Pax Natura, and he actually got the award. Um, so it was such a big honor getting to meet somebody who not only got the award, but also was talking about the work that they were doing. And yeah, that's how I learned about it. And then I was invited to volunteer. But then after talking about volunteering opportunities, we immediately discussed about joining um, as a board member because of the work I'd be doing and maybe the plans I had for them. So it was great. I was then invited, and then also kind of motivated to work on my own projects and things like that. So at the time, I was in Utah and in Spain, and then officially my work began with them when I moved to Japan. Right now, I'm in Tokyo. I'm based here, and I'm mostly working on my PhD um, in the field of international relations, which I'm officially done. So yes, I'm so happy. It's been such a big journey for me. And um, in in Japan, besides in parallel to my PhD, I've been working for the Peace Research Institute. So we focus mostly on kind of bringing awareness to peace building within East Asia, like hosting forums, discussions, um, like recently a study trip to Fukushima, and it's been wonderful to work for that institute. And I've also been working on a number of other international organizations while here, like the OECD, talking about nuclear energy issues, the Academic Council for the UN System, so bringing together practitioners and academics to talk about kind of the UN specific research. So a bunch of other things in parallel to my PhD. But now that the PhD is done, I'm really, really happy and thinking about the next steps. Jordan has been such a blessing to work with. Yeah, so Radio Natura was born during COVID time, actually. And I had also recently joined the board. Um, and yeah, it's a project that brings me so much joy because I think it aligns very well with Pax's mission on bridging peace and sustainability, and is an outlet for education and awareness on environmental issues. So, as one of the youngest board members at the time, I was able to partner up with Jordan, who had recently also joined the board, and we talked about like what we can do. Right, we can participate in meetings actively, we can give our opinions and thoughts, but what is a tangible project we can do? And Randall has always been super supportive about a youth-led initiative, and so when we were talking, I proposed the idea of a podcast, and yeah, he was on board immediately, which I was just really, really happy about because I thought he would be hesitant, like, oh, I don't know, it's a big time commitment. But he was like, I'm in. So I was like, great. And I felt very honored and privileged to work with him on this because the podcast, he handled a lot of the logistics and organization, and I handled more of like how do we get the people and managing the team and the topics. So we brought together a group of like 20 plus kind of youth interested in environmental issues, and basically gave them some guidance on how to deal with interviews and what topic they want to do, and we edited scripts and everything. So we ended up compiling a list of wonderful, wonderful speakers that I don't think we would ever have the access to if it weren't for those relationships that our team built. And then, then we got people in the social media marketing team to create some nice posters. And at the end of the day, and it was all free, by the way. And Randall kindly provided us funding for the website, the editing procedures, these things, and we feel super grateful. And yeah, we compiled a bunch of wonderful, wonderful interviews, and in them we have one for Randall, we have one for Dean. We also tried to incorporate a lot of the board's voices to highlight the wonderful work they're doing. So that's how it came out. And yeah, please check out our episodes. I think they're really, really wonderful. We got to interview Jane Goodall as one of the first ones, and that was such a big honor, because I could not have imagined booking an interview with her if it weren't for the wonderful friendship she has with Randall, and the wonderful connection she has with Pax, of course. So yeah, it's a very life-changing moment and a project that I think is that will continue on. My training and background mostly comes from the field of mental health. So I'm in essence a clinician, and then I bridged over to becoming more of a mediator in conflict resolution through my training abroad. And now I'm more in the field of international relations and the interdisciplinary work that happens there. So I think it's a mix of those three disciplines, and the later two have been ones that I've pursued abroad. So I've lived in, mostly Japan, Spain through my Fulbright, and the US, and a couple other regions based on the work I've done. I've worked on work in Kenya through an AI project. I've worked in Hokkaido through a biomass energy project, through some small grants that I received. And I think throughout all those places that I've been, what connects kind of nature and peace is this, at least for people, this desire to connect them and awareness of the interconnection between them. Because there's a lot of people passionate about the environment, and but I think there's not a lot of opportunities on educating oneself, especially if one doesn't come from the discipline. Like, if I'm not an environmental major, that doesn't mean I don't understand environmental issues. However, maybe it takes me a while, and to understand them, it needs to really resonate with me. So throughout all these cultural contexts, I've really seen that peace is the one that connects it with environmental issues, because people are, I think, more interested, or not necessarily interested, more I think in tune of what peace could mean, and it's more broad, right? It could mean so many different things to people, and then putting in the environmental component to it then adds that additional layer, so people are then motivated to act and do things. So that's what I think how peace and nature connects through all contexts, because even though you might not be somebody that comes with kind of some training or background in environmental issues, with that peace component, I think it makes it more personal. And I think throughout all communities I've been involved with, there's a lot of people who want to to do well for the environment, and at the same time still be true to themselves and be open to learning. And I think that's something wonderful that connects us all. Social work is a really interesting discipline because it encompasses so much. There's global social work abroad, there's more like in hospitals, there's also in NGOs, and it's mostly really helping people reach their full potential, right? And you do that through you're trained to be a clinician and seek out their like awareness on the mental health and background. So for me, it's social work has opened the doors to becoming aware, most than anything, becoming aware of how environment affects the person. And so it's great to be passionate about environmental issues and aware, but if you don't know where your next meal will come from or where you will be sleeping the next day, then it's not the priority, right? So that's something that being a social worker slash therapist has taught me, that we must support someone with their basic needs, and then move forward, but at the same time really help them kind of see the link, right? There's a lot of, for example, abroad, communities that are going to be losing their homes because of climate change, and bringing awareness to that to see how it connects is very important. There's also this idea, I don't remember specifically the name, but when we think of society and economic growth, um, the scholar talks about how we can continue on thinking, okay, we need more economic growth, we need the economy to be better, to make the economy better, but at some point it shouldn't necessarily look like this, because that comes with the cost of the environment as well, right? So he kind of talks about these both spheres, and for me, that reflects a lot of what I do with my clients too, because again, you need to know their basic needs, their basic necessities, and then move forward. But I think everyone connects to nature in so many ways. Some of them feel like it's something super personal. Others feel like it's almost like a higher power. Others feel it's um, basically a representation of their home. So it's such a nice way to start a lot of the work as a social worker, and especially with women. Women's health, I think, is incredibly important, and women and children usually are the most vulnerable in a lot of the situations that I deal with. So it's a good population to start with. Living here in Japan, I think it's extremely international, at least the circles I'm in, because everybody comes to visit Tokyo at some point. So what I love about it here is you can be in the city, like which is about 30 minutes from where I live. Like so many buildings, people like going to the work. It's very, very fast paced. And like in 2 minutes, go to a park that's in the middle of Shinjuku Station, and just like breathe in how beautiful everything is around. Like, and I love that contrast. Like I can literally be in trains in crowded places and just walk about, I think out of the station it's like 15 minutes, and be in this most beautiful like park full of green and peace. And I think it helps me balance myself a lot. And one of the magic things about Japan, I believe, because of the nature that it's still encompassed within its infrastructure and within how it's built and designed. So I think moments like that help me realize like how crucial it is. And so if we can have something like that in different ways, it doesn't necessarily need to come in that way. Um, it adds more value and more conversation and momentum when people talk about what they can do. And that was a big focus on the podcast, actually, because it was not only multilingual, youth led, but at the end it was about nuggets of things you can do, of not nuggets of knowledge and action item stuff. So I think when people think what I can do is, okay, I need to go protest in this place. Okay, I need to go and become aware of this policy. And that's great. I think that's great. But there's so many other things, um, even becoming aware of the issue, um, and things of this matter also makes sense. But I think a challenge is when communities are like, what can I do with what I have? And there's, I think, three types of changes, right? In the local level, which I think with enough self-exploration and mentorship and guidance, because they're the ones who know their community the best, right? Then there could be projects that they can initiate, or they can start, or they can think about. At the meso level with community, when it's term of what they can do, there's a lot of organizations that I think support the work, but there's a gap also between how to approach these organizations, how to even apply for funding, what's the process like. So that link is something I'm part of helping bridge a little bit better, but um, one of the biggest things they can do, but at the same time, one of the hardest things they can do if they don't really know where to start. And at the macro level, I think it's policy work, right? So bringing awareness to people that have been voted in and who are the representatives or policymakers, and really like sharing what they think. But even getting to those spaces requires some good networking or um, time. Because a lot of people have jobs, right? And so then they can't necessarily get a day off work and go and talk to their legislative, or talk to the maybe even villages. Like maybe it's not as easy to access like the higher person. So it's a lot on maybe a person's belief of what they can do, and also those resources and connections that are there. And I think that's where Pax fills a lot of the gap, because Pax not only has people working actively, but in many ways, and is extremely resourceful. Um, and the works that they're doing in Costa Rica, in Mexico, and everything is so inspiring. So I think if we take the Pax model, I think a lot of communities, especially from marginalized backgrounds, can maybe learn from. Um, yeah, but it's desire of what we can do, and this maybe also sense of powerlessness, perhaps, like, yeah, can I really do this? Can I get others to join me? And I think it's very possible, but when it comes to from the outside, it looks very, very possible, right? Oh, you just need to get together and talk and organize this. But from the inside, it's much more complex. So even from the outsider, not necessarily simplifying that process, but knowing kind of how multi-layered that is, and trying to do something about it as well. I know I've done some consultancy work, kind of helping mediate that, especially when organizations want to seek funding. Because I'm aware of all not all of them, but like key funding partners, and kind of helping shape some proposals and things like that, working with them closely. I've done that work in English, Spanish, Japanese a little bit, and yeah, it's been a way that I've been able to contribute in some way. I have a big responsibility, and I'm inspired by all the PAX board members, especially Randall, Dean, Jordan, Donna. Um, I think the things they do that leverage their strengths and still are in line with bridging peace and nature and bringing awareness to that is really inspiring. So I think that's what keeps me going too, having really, really good role models. And also in my team for the podcast, a lot of them have like started their own initiatives. For example, Jimena has like a NGO where they recycle parachutes, right, and make bags out of them. There's other people who've also started something similar in the fashion realm. Others who are more in the like writing articles about it to bring awareness to things. Um, so like everybody's doing something, and I think then that leads me like, okay, what can I do? Because my background is mostly in the clinical setting, mental health, which I can connect. Now it's mediation and conflict resolution, which is great because I've connected international relations is extremely connected to environmental issues too. So yeah, it motivates me to see, okay, how can I contribute in my own way that leverages my own strengths? Because I love to do certain things that other people are doing, but perhaps it's not necessarily in my training or capacity. But it's I'm always happy to learn and jump on board. I think everybody should engage in mediation at some point because it teaches you very basic principles of trying to see kind of both sides. Really understanding the deeper issue, because in a lot of mediation work, the problem isn't necessarily the problem that you're facing. It's something deeper. It's something that is almost invisible, and through a lot of questions and um, rephrasing and remodeling kind of the discussion, you end up seeing, okay, this is the actual issue, um, and we can then end up, I don't know if solving it, but finding middle ground, right? So I think it's such an important aspect and dimension to the work we do, because I really, really believe that if you have a platform, um, and you're shedding awareness on issues and you're at the same time learning, um, then it does make a big difference for you and for the general public. So I think getting involved with a platform like ours, through maybe even our podcast, and being an active member where you're learning and educating yourself and finding ways you can contribute in your own ways, is the way to go. Of course, I can say, okay, join this event, come to these particular workshops, start your own project. Like those are very, like, I think, common answers. But I really think is find an organization, and then I really try to know yourself and what strengths you bring to the table, and maybe what network you have, and then see what you can do. Right? There's a lot of also great, what is it called? I can't remember. No, I'm forgetting the word, but there's a lot of um wonderful incubators and startup initiatives. Even impacts, I think they support a lot of these projects where you could come up with an idea and it could be funded, right? Um, so I think a lot of young people can not only join a platform but also think of an idea of how to solve an issue and maybe pitch it so that then they can try it out and see if it works and see if it makes a difference or not. um, and so again, learning about those other platforms that exist for funding for your idea and moving on is, I think, one of the best things that a young person can do. There's also conferences people can attend. I've been inspired by particularly one conference, which is One Young World Japan, where you go and you mostly engage with people, change makers, and you kind of really have action driven dialogue and come back to your home country and kind of start a project or engage in really good discussions. Um, and I guess the last one, I'll stop with the list, but I think one of the life changing moments I've had um, has been being able to represent the US in the Y20 in India back in 2023, where we were a total of 5 people representing US youth. And mine was on peace and reconciliation. There's also one on sustainability and environment, but I think peace overlaps with that. So a lot of that was also something I've taken on. There's a track on health. Um, and so the cool thing about this is you actually get to represent like all the youth in the US and their priorities and bring it to the table at the international level where there's other 20 plus countries and you're negotiating policy recommendations. You're like, okay, this is what youth really need. And I'm voicing what their desires. Of course, other countries will push back on some items. But even running to be one of the representatives for the Y20, it's happening this year, I think, in South Africa. Happens every year for the Y7 and the Y20, and being able to represent the US and really meet all these people from all these different governments, and at the end come up with a policy recommendation that we all agreed to sign, and that this document then gets sent to G20 leaders who are making decisions at the end of the day. And it's an amazing way to get involved and really put into practice what you're doing. So 100% go for that opportunity. So yeah, youth can be spokesperson, people in organizations, funders. There's so many ways, but I think Y20 is such a specific way, and joining Pax as well is a very specific way as well. There's so much discussion on it, but I think, yeah, at the end of the day, you're writing some policy recommendations that all the youth have agreed to sign from all these governments, and saying, okay, wow, we can collaborate and agree that the environment is important and in this way. And then for G20 leaders to read it and perhaps apply it or not, but still bring awareness to it I think, is such a big honor and such a critical way to bring in your passion for environmental issues. And environment is connected to so many other things, and then voice it, defend it, try your best to influence others, and yeah, see it move forward. And but also part of it also is the community you built, because when you come back, all these people are kind of your friends, right? And people who will be ending up, I think, in the future making decisions on matters like ours. So having that network and friendship is extremely important. And what I've been able to do with it is come back and start projects here as well. Like been able to apply to a grant from New York, um, to go to Hokkaido with a professor and students as well. I wasn't able to end up going, but like being part of the preparation because something came up last minute for me. But yeah, going and learning about biomass energy and seeing students become super passionate about it. Then I got another grant to engage in workshops, so going to classrooms after I came back and talking to people about what the process was like and the priorities, joining the Global Shapers movement, where I've been able to then create sub-projects to the World Economic Forum. So it's like a domino effect. Even I've done that with Pax as well. Like everything that I've learned from Pax, I've been trying to implement it as well here. I've been kindly supported as well by Pax to join some wonderful, wonderful international discussions and meetings that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for their support, where I could learn, but also voice what I believe and make it a very enriching experience. I think even for COP29 with Azerbaijan, in Azerbaijan, I was selected through through the UN Constitutional Research Center to go and represent as a delegate, and a bunch of other conferences. And PAX has been such a big supporter because usually it's not as motivating to join these conversations, but seeing Randall being like, yes, it would be great to support you, and also like seeing him excited and seeing him super encouraging is so wonderful. And I think if youth or anybody of any age, to be honest, has somebody like that, I think many things are possible. The reason people care about something is because it goes beyond the theory and really you see how it impacts people's lives. But it's interesting because not all types of storytelling works. I think it's a magic combination of you're in the right place at the right time with the right audience. And so I think that's the tricky part with storytelling, because I've seen the power of storytelling and how people share their experience and how they see things fit in the world and maybe challenges that they faced and things like that. But if it doesn't resonate with the other person, it can be the best, really an amazing example, but it doesn't resonate with the person. And so I think the best storytellers are the ones that resonate the most. In order for it to resonate the most, there needs to be different points of connection, right? So that's why I think it's such an important skill to have, an important component to add. Because if you resonate with someone at some way, then they're touched, right? And then they're inspired and they're like, wow, okay, that was me. That's like, I see myself in this. And so when I see maybe a really good story of how this has impacted a community, right? Then, and in what ways that they see it and that I haven't, and maybe they perhaps have lived abroad like me and things like this, and I'm like, wow, okay, then I'm more receptive, because if one's receptive, then a lot of things can be done. And that's how I've seen it work, when people are vulnerable and share their point of view, and people are receptive enough to receive it, and then that spark comes about, right? When it comes to even peace, because peace can mean so much to different people, right? So for a teacher, it could be like a way to teach. For, I don't know, for somebody in the military, it can be the end of war. For an artist, it could be like much more philosophical than that. So it can mean so many different things for people. And so it's the same for the other way around. Your story can be shared, but it can mean very different things. And you don't necessarily need to care so much. You should share your story wherever you can, but at the same time, see different points of connection and contact. So I think that really works when you're trying to advocate for any policy work that you want to be moved forward, or just want to bring someone into a project, right? Even being, not even following the traditional way of telling a story, right? Like, this is what happened, this is the challenge, this is how I solved, this is how it ends. Like, that's a very traditional, maybe starting from the middle and going backwards. Maybe there wasn't a solution at the end of the day, but still, like, this got you thinking about something else. So like, I think with story, we think it's like beginning, middle, end, but there's so many ways you can go about doing this. And yeah, and also getting to know who you're talking to, right? Like, okay, if you're talking to a bunch of people in business, then maybe you should maybe cater more to what the money ends up doing for good. If you're in a room full of, like, I don't know, mental health professionals, then you can actually like tailor it a little bit more. So obviously stays true to, maybe when I mean storytelling is when people have been directly affected by climate change, for example, and when they share that, or when somebody has directly worked with people in that area. And I think one of the biggest things, and I say this in my TED talk, is like paying attention to the language we use, because it does make a big difference. And I know it might be no, now there's a lot of discussion on, does it really make a difference? But I do think, like, even saying, for example, my topic was on refugees, because I've worked with them a lot. So you could say refugee children, okay, makes sense, right? Or you could say children with refugee backgrounds. And so people are like, oh my gosh, why so complicated? Just get to the point. But but things like that, I think, do make a small difference, because the refugees are not their full identity, right? They're kids with refugee backgrounds. So I feel it's actually more accurate. And paying attention to the language we use, especially when we talk about these matters, and putting attention to that as well, I think is extremely important. And also acknowledging the things that we are also wanting to know more about, and we don't know, right? I don't know so many things. And when I talk to somebody like Jordan, for example, it's easy to be like, okay, I don't get it, but at all. But if there's a part of it that I'm like, okay, I get this part, and it's really well explained and it's broken down for me, then I'm like, okay, then yeah, it makes sense. We can do that, right? But if it's just this, I don't know, just this, okay, this is what happens, this had affected me. I was like, okay, it's great, but I don't get it, and also doesn't resonate with me. So good for you, but bye, yeah. So in that sense, don't follow the traditional way. You can go in many different directions. I'm American, first generation American, but my roots are in Peru. I'm Peruvian, and my grandma actually is a big advocate for indigenous issues, and she herself, like mostly my mother's side, bit of my father's side too, our native language is Quechua, and so the Quechua community is really close to me, to my heart. I know the language a little bit, but for me, going every year to Peru, especially during Christmas time, and seeing my grandma being involved in these kind of community projects and these gatherings, which at the beginning I don't understand, or I didn't understand, but really advocating for access to clean water and collaborating on that, and really having a voice, because there's a lot of NGOs, international organizations involved, but also what they want to do, right? Really sharing what they want to do. And I think she was a big role model for me in terms of this particular issue, because not a lot of people speak Quechua, and it's a language that's unfortunately dying off. And some people even feel embarrassed to speak it, because there's a lot of discrimination for indigenous folks, especially in Peru. So, but she was like the translator and the bridge for that. And so she can speak Spanish and she can speak Quechua, and seeing her like like use that skill, because some community leaders don't know Spanish at all, because it's in Cusco specifically, and bridging it to people who are willing to help in terms of the water matter, but they don't speak Quechua, right? The closest they can is Spanish. And then with me, I can translate it from Spanish to English, but that's like a second layer. I think is one of the biggest issues, because if you don't know the language, especially if you don't have the trust in the community, then how are you gonna want to make a change? So for me, the water issue has been very, very, very close to my heart, because of my background and seeing my grandma very involved in this matter. But also, like, air pollution is something that I'm even more passionate about now, because after going to India and representing the US and things of this matter, I was able to really see the effects of air pollution. Not only in India, I think Egypt, all these other places are suffering from it. And it's such a big issue. And perhaps because we live in other parts with not as the biggest effect, we're like, oh, it's an issue and hopefully it gets solved. But it's one that I think not only affects minority communities, but communities that I think don't necessarily have a voice so much. And that's what I'm working on. I actually started a project with a friend of mine, and both of us, it's still in the development, but helped like design. I did more of the design, social media. He did more of the mechanics behind it, but like an affordable air purifier, which is tackles indoor pollution, because there's a difference between indoor pollution and outdoor pollution. And usually having an air purifier is a luxury, because it costs a lot of money, and a lot of these queens cannot afford it at all. And what we've created is this filter that comes at a very, very, very low price. And they can build it themselves. Actually, at this point, it's just showing them how to build it. And then yeah, putting in their homes, helping their own health. And also the idea is to see it, right? Because a lot of times we talk about an issue, but it doesn't feel real until you see it. And so when you see the actual, like, how much pollution it is in just a month, and the idea is to then share it on social media, create this movement where there's data points that people can then go to their policymaker, but just see it is such a big deal, right? So I think that's the part I'm working on. He's designing it too, and I hope it adds on, and it does end up helping people, but it's still in the baby steps. It needs to be refined. The concept is there, the design is there, the prototype is there. It just needs to be further refined, and also trying to seek out some funding from different organizations to try and implemented. There's so many, but it takes a little bit of time. So that's one that I have after coming back from India, because it was there, kind of became passionate about it, and then found this friend that was willing to jump on board. And now we're trying to do something with it. And engineering is not my discipline. However, it's also not a very difficult concept in terms of things to understand and grasp. So that's another issue that I'm passionate about: air pollution, specifically indoor air pollution, because it does affect your health. It's a luxury that I think should not be a luxury. I think everybody should have access to clean air, and one that I'm actively working on to tackle. Biggest opportunity for global collaboration. Yeah, so I think it's finding issues that we're all passionate about, regardless of borders. So, okay, maybe going back to the air pollution matter, it affects more than just one country, right? It affects well, more countries than others, but seeing this is a matter that affects all of us and will continue to affect all of us even more, is something that countries, I think, can grapple on and maximize on and build on. And I think there is, but it could be more like south to south cooperation. So like Latin America, for example, I think has a lot of potential to work with other countries, other continents, on issues that affect them in particular, and can find different issues that connects with other states. With air pollution, I think it kind of erodes the borders, because it's something that affects people in the same way, despite your nationality. And so if people realize this and find or innovative ways to tackle it, so really foster a culture where with people with ideas can come propose it, try it out, and then that's rewarded instead of punished. There can be ways to collaborate much better, because people, I think, at the end of the day, work together if they have the same issue, right? I can say I want to solve your issue, but if it doesn't directly affect me, why would I put so much work and energy? So it's really finding those issues that at the end of the day, even though it's very depressing, connects us. We're able to then kind of come up with not even necessarily solutions, because solutions, there could be like band-aid solutions that are going to work in 2 years versus like long-term solutions, but can get together really and tackle that. And I also think people with I'm a big advocate for like international exchange programs, because I'm a former Fulbright alumni, and part of that was coming from the US to Spain, in some way representing the US, right? Because you're talking to Spanish people who haven't been to the US or who have, and representing in some capacity, but also knowing what Spain is like. So these exchange programs, which some people see not as valuable at all or a waste of time, are extremely valuable, because it adds what is this like soft power, not just directly, but soft power, where you can get to know another country through your exchange program, whatever you're doing. I think the Department of State does wonderful things to promote that, and you learn. You also get feedback of how everybody else sees the U.S., and maybe you're more receptive to issues of that particular area, right? And you open your eyes. You're not in this bubble anymore. And then when a problem arises, a potential collaboration moment arises, you're more eager to go and jump on it because this issue matters to you, right? Because you've lived in that country, you've worked with those people, and you've seen those systems, versus somebody who's never gone out and been like, well, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, I've never been exposed to that. So I think these exchange programs are extremely important for collaboration and for soft power to really kind of have its effect. There's so many other parts, I think, and I guess the last thing I would say is interdisciplinary work. Like, I think that enables a lot of great collaboration because you can, like, my background is social work / mental health, but coming out from an IR background, mediation, soon another discipline, makes me see an issue from different directions. So I see many different collaborative opportunities in somebody who maybe comes from another point of discipline, right? So it's all of this, I think, and yeah, and making sure we promote these kind of avenues a bit more. Like, at the end of the day, it's really those people. It's more not necessarily me, but I've seen it work. That's why I talk about it. Like, I've seen people who've gone to these places and really resonate with an issue and come back and have an interdisciplinary approach to things, and then have the opportunity to seize it and tackle it in a very unique way. Like, I've seen that. I've seen so many examples of this. And even in my own friend circle, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it doesn't need to be the only way, but it's one of the most effective ways that I've seen it work. And so, yeah, that's why I share my perspective on that. But I'm sure there's many other ways that people can collaborate more effectively, and yeah. So, but at the end of the day, I think it's you find a problem that you're both invested in, and you go and tackle it the best way you can. I think I want Pax to continue growing, to continue the projects that it's currently supporting, for the podcast to also grow and expand and include more voices. But at the end, for Pax to be this bridge, continue being this bridge of awareness and action and inspiration, but really in the future become a hub that brings together practitioners and academics, and to really rethink a matter. Right now it does that, but kind of bringing in more people with different backgrounds and tackling maybe projects that haven't been thought of before, and really showing a presence in that. And I also see it in the future as a leading organization for youth to really have a platform, because we have amazing people on the board, and I'm like, wow, so privileged to know them. But I think little by little we'll be able to get more youth involved and really make it this, like, this engagement, this platform where we're learning from both areas, right? Both sides. There is a quote by the UN Secretary General. He says, like, we cannot build a system for a future generation. We cannot build a system designed for our grandparents that is also aiming to kind of help or be designed for us, right? I'm paraphrasing it, but yeah, I would like for PAX to be this platform for youth voices to be amplified even more, and that's where I see it head in that direction. And also this collaborator, because there's so many projects we're doing, and there's many other projects that people abroad are also doing in different capacities as well. So this connector, like, okay, you're working on this, we can connect with this. You're working on that, we can connect with this, where people can see it as a good networking connector hub organization. That's how I see it. And more than anything, a platform that gets to inspire people, because a lot of people on this matter are like, I think for me, at least when I've encountered people, it's very like, are you an environmental person? If you're not, then okay, you're okay there. Like, this is our group, little group. But I think what PAX is no, like, we're gonna invite everyone, as long as they have a passion and vision for how to connect peace and nature, they're in. And I see that continuing moving forward and even maximizing, and seeing ways that we can, continue long-term projects, because there's a lot of great resources spent on something short, but I think what PAX's difference is that the long-term impacts are very obvious. And so kind of still engaging in those projects while still engaging in the other ones and balancing both. So I see so many things for PAX. But at least on my role, really engaging with the youth and seeing it as an important platform for exchange.